Okay, a second hello everybody. This is my fourth tutorial for today, demonstrating installing DLU. I've had problems with every single one. Hopefully this is going to be the one. So, beginning I'm going to be following along with the WSL setup. I'm going to be talking, as I do it, I'm going to be explaining everything that I'm trying to do as I try and do it. So to begin with, I'm following along, the Windows subsystem for Linux setup, which basically says, DLU was designed for Linux, so rather than trying to use the specific build for Windows, which is actually broken at the moment, use the WSL setup instead. That's what I'm going to be doing here. So right now we're just, I've set the default version of WSL to 1, and this is to prevent an issue later on, and then I'm going to begin by installing Ubuntu. Putting that on here, and this will take a few minutes. So whilst this is loading, I'm going to basically just say, this will be a pretty long video. This is going to be, I'll probably send this to Vicey to see if he wants to cut it down to produce like a more condensed version, but this will basically hopefully explain not only what it is I'm doing, but why I'm doing every particular thing. It's not going to be a complete explanation of anything involved, but it will be. Let's just remember the password I'm typing in. It's gabagool with a question mark. It won't be a complete setup of a complete explanation of why we do everything, but it will, why we do this and not why we try and do something else. But it should be a complete explanation of at least the things we do. And so I'm in Ubuntu. I'm now just going to start to update and upgrade things. So this is going to be the first thing I do. I actually not 100% certain if we're updating the package apt or if presumably we are calling update and upgrade as arguments to apt. And I need to, because this is sudo, I need to put in a password, which is gabagool, the password I just created. Why do we need to do this? Well, what did I create a password for to begin with? Basically, WSL acts like a really small computer inside your computer. It's I don't know the precise technicalities, but it's in some sense similar to a virtual machine. This is something which acts like a completely independent computer and operating system within your computer. And so what I'm doing up there is I'm just saying, just as when you get any new computer, you need to set your username and you need to enter a password. So that's all I'm doing here. We've just created a new computer and we're setting the username and password for it. The next step is going to be, we need to install a ton of prerequisite files. Well, I should also explain what the sudo is. The sudo is basically like, it's very similar to running something as administrator in Windows, and you'll see that every time I type sudo, I need to enter a username and password. That's because I am effectively running it as an administrator. The next step with this is going to be to install a ton of prerequisites. These prerequisites here are, so we're apt-get install. This is just installing prerequisites. This -y says if I left this out, more importantly, it would ask me a ton of times, oh, do you want to install this thing? Yes, no. This just, I believe, if I recall correctly, this just says yes to everything. I may be misremembering. Then we have the actual things that we want to install. We have Git, we have GCC, we have CMake, we have Build Essential, we have zlib, 1gdev, and MariaDB Server. I should also say that the way I'm copying and pasting these things in, if you try and hit Control-C, you'll realise it doesn't work. In fact, Control-C closes down a lot of programs. And so what we are doing instead, let's just actually double check the okay, everything seems to be cool. I totally lost my train of thoughts, but basically we're going to be beginning by downloading Git. This is going to allow us to, basically it's going to provide the pipeline for us to access GitHub and for us to download the DLU server. We're then going to install GCC. GCC is basically in charge of compiling C and I believe multiple C language files to assembly code, C or possibly machine code, I'm not 100% certain. CMake is involved in basically getting multiple, kind of similar to my understanding, to getting multiple executable files to work together. Build Essential is something. I have no idea what. DLU told me to install it, and like the good little boy that I am, I have. zlibg1dev is an external library you need to install, which if I recall correctly, is, I think it's somewhat to do with zipping and unzipping. I could be completely wrong on that, but you'll see later on in the installation that will come up as a thing which gets used. You'll see in the middle of, I think it's the CMake command right at the end. It will say like that it's used zlib or something. And then finally you have MariaDB server, which is basically the server we're going to be running. There are two servers in the game which you're going to want to think about. One of them is the client database, which basically contains the information on like every possible game object. It contains all the information required to basically define what everything in the game is. You then have the second database, which is going to be this database. This will use MariaDB or MySQL or MySQL, depending on how you want to pronounce that. And basically, this is in charge of storing the information about all your characters. One is in charge of containing all the information about like what is in the game, or about everything that can be in the game, and one thing tells you about the specific players, etc. that are in the game. The reason they're separated is because they do basically two completely different jobs, and also the other one, which is going to be, we convert it from an FDB format, which is how it's stored in the client, into a SQLite format. It's kind of just historically, people have always used the SQLite format, and therefore we have a tendency to use that here. Yeah, it's a nice open source format, and you don't really, there's not too much to say there, basically. Later steps are going to involve us download it or cloning this module. I guess whilst this is going, I can also talk about some of these tabs I've got open, because we've got a little bit to go. Oh yeah, command line, how to uninstall WSL, because I honestly should know this one off by heart, because I've now installed and uninstalled this so many times. But anyway, I'm going to begin here, just looking at programs you're going to want to have downloaded for this setup. These are all programs you're going to want downloaded onto your Windows computer, not onto the WSL subsystem. I will go in more detail into anything downloaded onto WSL. You're going to want to download the SQLite browser. I use this one. You don't need this to set up DLU. But I would highly recommend, so you need to at some point handle SQLite files. I would highly recommend you do it using this. Not because there's in any sense a better way of doing it, it's arguably a slightly worse way of doing it than doing it on the WSL system, but it gives you a better sense of what it is you are doing. And this is also an incredibly helpful program to have later on when you're probably going to want to like have a list of all the objects in the game. This makes viewing that list entirely easy. And you'll actually generate that list as part of this setup. You're then going to want to download Python, probably download the latest version. I think I'm still on like 3.8 or something, but you're going to want to download the latest version, and I think 3.8 and upwards works for the account manager. I think 3.6 and upwards works for LCDR's utilities, which is all we're going to be setting up today. So you're going to want to download this. You're also going to want to go here, code, download zip. This is downloading LCDR's utilities, and you're finally going to want to download the nav mesh. I'm not 100% certain where this is, so let's just go up nav meshes. Nav meshes you can get from here, Darkflame server, resources, nav meshes. You're going to want to download all those things, and you can see if I go to my downloads folder, you can see if I go to my downloads folder that I've downloaded all three of those things, and I've in fact unzipped the two zip files. Should also probably go to the correct place. So for this is my LU client, and this will probably have, no, it still wasn't loaded yet, okay. So some more things to discuss. This is what an unpacked client looks like, more or less, or specifically what LCDR's unpacked clients looks like. You'll notice that it has some extra files, yours doesn't. Specifically these 4 files, your clients probably won't have unless you've stolen it from me. These are all things I've added in since then, but aside from those, that's how everything should look. You can then important files, which you'll see other differences. Sorry, CD client edits. That's again something that's unique to this client I'm using, unique to stuff I've done, and all of these are again things I've edited in. This is going to be a really important file, and we're going to do quite a bit of it later. Yeah, that's all there really is to say with that for now. I guess whilst I'm here, no, I won't do that in that order. I'll do it later. Okay, so let's check. Okay, so this is now finally finished. So we can then download DLU itself. Again, I'm using right-clicking to paste things in. If you can't right-click to paste things, if you are having difficulty, you want to right-click on the top of this, go Properties. I'm in Quick Edit mode. Quick Edit mode does have one issue, which is to do this, and you'll see all output is frozen because I've clicked, and it thinks I'm trying to select and copy something. In order to fix that, just hit Escape, or technically you can hit any key, it doesn't really matter, and everything will keep going. And that's just something to be aware of later on, because you may think something's frozen when in fact it actually hasn't. So we've downloaded this. Now we're going to want to we're going to want to create a file directory for the build, and we're going to want to move in to that file directory. That's what these two commands respectively do. We're then also going to just create a folder to store logs within the build directory. From here, well, I should just say what is this CD doing in particular? This make directory. So we've installed this. We've installed DLU server. We've downloaded it into this like tilde directory. This tells you which directory you're at. It's equivalent to where you are in File Explorer. I'm at this PC, my documents, my downloaded programs. What this is telling me is I'm in home, Dark Flame server, build. That's my current directory. I've just created within there a directory called logs. What I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to set some configuration values now. That didn't copy. Let's try this again. I'm going to want to set some configuration values, and to do this, I'm going to open up Notepad. This ... means I'm going up one level in the file path, and then I'm going to cmakevariables.txt, and I'm opening that in Notepad. Or specifically, I'm running notepad.exe with this as an argument, if we're being very precise. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make certain that this net version is on the correct number. Most of you probably won't have a DLU client. I'm not running this with my DLU client, and so you're going to want to set this to 2.2. When it says unmodded, you may have noticed mine was modded. All they mean by unmodded is it's not a DLU client, it is a client that was the final release version. You're going to want to set that, you're going to want to save, you're going to want to close this, and then I'm going to disappear for a bit, because what I found out last time is that if I talk whilst running these next two commands, actually, if I talk, well, specifically this command I'll be fine running. If I talk while running the command after, and if I try and record whilst running the next command, it turns out my computer just stops. The frame rate basically drops to 0, and we don't record anything. And you can see it's looking for zlib here, and it was very happy to find it. So the steps that are going to come after this, it's going to involve, we're going to make this. I will show you hitting make, and then I will just cut. And through the magic of editing, you'll be brought to just after the make is finished, and then we'll finish up, and we'll run some configurations. Well, yeah, we'll move about quite a lot of resources. This will build the server, we'll then move across all the resources we're going to need, we'll get the server into a place where it can run, and then we're going to start looking at the client edits we're going to need to make the client work with the server. And yeah, I'm going to cut here. I nearly said welcome back, but you guys haven't gone anywhere. I've gone somewhere. Anyway, you can see here that I messed up a little bit, and I'm recording this for the second time now, actually. So what you're going to want to do, you can see I've already run this command once. I'm just going to paste it in again, because you're going to want to actually do this twice. Oh, sorry, no, you're not going to want to do this twice. I've done this twice because I messed up when I was recording this. Anyway, what you're going to do, this is going to bring up, so we're now going to look at populating this res file and populating this locale file. In order to do it, there's some really easy stuff we can do. So first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the resources file from my client. I'm going to go macros, maps, brick models, names, and chat plus. And I'm going to copy all of that into res. Whilst that's going on, I'm going to go over to my downloads folder, which is here. And so from the downloads folder, you'll see I've got a few things downloaded. Importantly, I've downloaded, specifically for this next step, I've downloaded this utils-master. This is LCDR's utilities. That was downloaded from this web page, code, download zip. What I'm going to want to do, and this was the step I missed out last time, and which is why I'm re-recording this, so you're going to want to copy this, you're going to want to enter this into your command line. So I'm going to want to install, this. I've already installed this, so it won't take very long. So this is just by running that command. What I'm then going to want to do is I'm going to want to, the thing I'm going to want to do next is I'm going to want to copy over. You can see I've actually already done this because this last time, so I'm going to copy over from utils-master. This doesn't matter where you copy it to. So this is just, I literally extracted the zip file I got that zip file, I extracted it to this, I copied this over and renamed it. I placed it in here and renamed it to LCDR utilities. You can see it contains the same thing. So I'm going to go back to downloads here. And then we want to convert an FTP file in the client to SQLite. So we're going to be really interested in using this file. How we're going to use this is we're going to, and again, you can see I've already done this on this command line. I'm going to set my directory by using the command cd to the file path, which I'm at here. How do I do this? I click on this, that gets the current file path. I copy that, I paste it in here. As you can see, nothing's actually changed because I've already set my directory. If I could, for instance, change my directory by, if you just want to demonstrate that I actually did something, I could move up 2 files. You can see where I am changes. This gives my current location. And if I remember to put a CD in front, this will move my location into the correct file. I can then run fdb to SQLite.py, and I'm going to run it using Python. And that call I just received was a scam call. Or I don't know. No one said anything anyway. Anyway, we're going to go to Python fdb to SQLite, and then there's a question of, okay, wait a second. What are we? Basically, this tells Python I want to run this file, but this file also requires some arguments to run. Specifically, it needs to know where the CD client file that we're looking at is. And that CD client file is stored right here. It's this particular file. I'm going to get the file path to it, or at least the file path to the folder it's in. That's the file path to the folder it's in, and then to specify that CD client, I'm going to do CD client.fdb. I can then run this, and we're going to begin extracting some stuff. Whilst this is extracting, or converting, I'm going to get nav meshes up. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it into, on the server side, the resources folder we were looking at. I'm going to paste the nav meshes in here. And just worth double checking, the thing it contains are the bins. I don't know where the identifiers came from. I still don't know that. But yeah, it's really important that it contains these .bin files. And that it doesn't and that what you don't have is another folder in here which contains the .bin files. The .bin files you need to see them when you click on this folder here. And that folder does also need to be called nav meshes. Basically, it needs to be the same as what I have. That's kind of the summary of this. At this stage, we've just converted, our conversion is finished, and you can see we've got cdclient.sqlite. What are we going to do here? I'm going to open up the database browser. You can, this is the database browser that we downloaded earlier on. I honestly don't remember if I feel I discussed this, but I've honestly done so many of these videos I forget which ones I have. So we downloaded from here, we downloaded SQLite browser, downloaded Python. Yeah, I definitely did discuss that this time around. So we downloaded this, you run the installer, which is that, and you get this program. Get this program, I'm going to go open database. I'm going to go to LU. No, I'm not. I'm going to go to the LCDI utilities. So these are the utilities we downloaded. I'm going to open up this file. I'm then going to execute some SQL commands. And those SQL commands you can find in CD server. Specifically, we're going to start with this. I'm going to Control Enter to run it. This you can copy by just clicking that. Control Enter to run again. And the final one is this. This one's a little bit longer. It's about 363. Yes, got it right. Yep. Okay, we've done all these. We're now going to save or write changes to the database. Write changes of the database to the database. And we can now close this. At this point, we have successfully updated our SQL file, and we're going to rename it. I'm actually going to make a copy because I would strongly recommend you do the same, because this is just because we're going to move this over now to the WSL server, but I'd recommend always having a version of CD client on your computer because it's just an incredibly useful thing to have. Okay, so we're then going to move this over to the resources file. Going to paste it in. There you are. We've got it moved in here, and now we've got almost everything we're going to need. The next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to set up the database. This database we're going to set up on here. And you note we've already installed the database. We did that earlier on. So now we're just going to boot it up. Boot it up like this. Password. The password is the same password you set at the very beginning. For me, it's gabagool. Okay, we've got it started. Everything's good. I'm then going to log in with the root, because I can do this without providing any password because I'm running sudo. Now what we're then going to do is we're going to change the password of root to gabagool. So this is the user for the database, the basically admin user for the database. We're going to set the password, and here we are then going to create the database. We're going to say, okay, from now I'm going to use this database. We're going to apply a set of changes to the database, and then we're going to show all the tables in the database. And then we're going to say we're done with MariaDB. We're going to exit. I pasted those 5 lines in. We get all of this. I didn't actually paste the enter after exit, so if I hit enter, we'll do that. And now the database should be set up. Now, this is when my notes are just completely wrong, and I say we just run this. We don't just run this. There's still a bit more to go. First off, what we're going to need to do, we're going to need to go into the build directory, and we're going to need to make some edits. Specifically, we're going to want to go to this. We're going to want to change this to localhost. We're going to want to change the database to the name of the database. In my instance, I named it DLU database. My MySQL username was, what was it? It was root, and the password was gabagool. Okay, for speed, I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to need to do this in the 4 config files, 3 other config files, now 2 other config files in here. It's raining, I like the rain. Okay, we're going to we've now configured all of those. We now should, if I've set everything up correctly, be able to just run this. Last time I did this, I failed and had to really quickly debug on the spot. But that's worked first time. That's really nice. Ninja of LU, password gabagool. Okay, we have now created the server. Now all that remains for us to do is for us to go in and apply some edits to the client. The edits we're going to have to make to the client are pretty small. If you've set up any server before, you'll be used to going into boot.cfg and changing things. I'd recommend patch server IP, auth server IP, and UGC server IP, all to be set to localhost. I think auth is the only one you actually need set. You might need UGC. You shouldn't ever need patch, really. But I tend to have them all set to localhost. Potentially other servers in the future may use various things in there. Doesn't matter too much for now. So we've got the boot configuration set up. Then all we need to do is apply a small patch, which is actually a typo that existed. Okay, so go into scripts. AI is a typo that existed, minigame survival, in the live client. This should be on player ready. And for whatever reason, this timer done never occurred at the point in time that this line would ever run. And so no one ever picked up on it in live. With that done, we are nearly complete. However, if we want brick building to work, there's one final thing we're going to have to do. We're going to have to open up a new instance of Ubuntu. We are going to want to run this command. It's actually, we're going to want to run a slightly different command. We're going to want to run Python 3, I believe, if I recall correctly. Gabagool. And I did this last time. So, okay, one thing I forgot to mention on the previous thing is I'm going to press Control-C to end this, to close it. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to... I don't know if this is necessary, but I know this is what I do every time. And it works. As it is, as I should really be clear, this is not a tutorial on how to set this up in general. This is a tutorial on how I set it up last time. I'm no expert on any of this. With that, then going to go, then going to get master server. Going to want to run this. And hey presto, we have Lego Universe set up. Now, if I recall correctly, there's normally a bit of a delay, and it won't let me right away actually play LU. Let's see if I can demonstrate this, or maybe my computer is just so lightning fast that it will have done so by the time this loads. Let's see. The password is going to be Gabagool, the same one I set up as creating the admin account. Oh, and it was fast enough. So there we are. We're just going to hop right in. This is done. There are lots of things that I've done in this tutorial that could be and arguably should be done better. One huge thing is in how we handled everything I did here. I brought up this Explorer and did a lot of stuff just copying files back and forth. Apparently, I risk permissions issues by doing this. The better way of doing it would be to either do this all via the command line, or, well, yeah, definitely do it via the command line. Ideally, I would recommend setting up symlinks, which basically, within the res file, I'd set up symlinks to all of these. That means that any changes you make on your client are automatically synced to the server. I'd also set a symlink with the locale. That's one better way of doing this. Other things which are... what else do I have to say? I feel there was other stuff to discuss. Well, I can just demonstrate it loads in. I would normally run all the way to Avant Gardens just to check the servers working correctly. That'd be my recommendation. Specifically to smashing a mech in Avant Gardens. If you drop a turret, it's probably good. The one other thing you can test is there seems to be an open issue at the moment with physics volumes not working perfectly. Specifically, the Forbidden Valley wind, people have noted, doesn't work properly. But I also noticed some stuff in the monument not working properly. So I suspect it's a general issue of physics volumes. Anyway, I think that's about it. I'm going to try and run through here. Other things that I kind of did a little bit weirdly. The downloading of the browser, if you the SQLite browser, if you go to other places, they won't tell you to download that. I again would highly recommend it just for future stuff. Like, yeah, that's how. Like, lots of times people will just discuss, and myself included, will just discuss database files, or just discuss looking up something in the database. That's how almost everyone will do it. As you can see, missions are working, everything's going well. And yeah, we are basically done. Hopefully I've covered everything. Hopefully I don't have to go through and do this again. Fortunately, my mic will be has been turned on this time, which is always a good start. It wasn't last time. You can see that I am bad as well. That's one thing this tutorial demonstrated quite clearly. Yeah, I'll run through to turrets relatively quickly. So you also get a little bit of Venture Explorer speedrunning. But yes, this should hopefully be a pretty complete description of the setup, and also a pretty complete description of why we make every decision we do in the setup. Wow, that was bad. Actually, not a really complete description of why we make every decision we do, but a relatively complete one. One other thing to discuss is why we went for WSL 1 rather than WSL 2. The reason for that is to do with the fact that I would like to be able to run this by clicking localhost. In particular, there was an external XP setting in all of those configuration files I edited. Actually, most of those configuration files, not all of them. The world server doesn't have an external IP configuration, but those, yeah, they all have some external IP configuration. Why do they have that? Because it's related to if you want to run this server for anyone else. Animations seem to be a little bit broken. Oh no! I killed Robert the chicken. That's actually really sad. Not certain what's going on with animations. That could well just be a client-sided. Actually, I'm fairly certain that is a primarily client-sided bug. I think that's something that can be triggered by the server, but it is first and foremost client-sided. Most likely that was. I have noticed when doing all of this and playing through, I've noticed that sometimes I think it's just the server being a little bit slow causes some problems. There we are. Animations work. Oh no, animations are not all working. The second the hack goes on, you can build. But yeah, I've noticed between different runs of this, sometimes slightly different things happen. I suspect, given that my setup process has been like identical each time, I suspect it's more to do with speed of the server and things happening. I think this is related to the animation, if I had to guess. Hope this is related. There we are. Yeah, okay, so that was in some sense related to animations, I think. Related to animation, just going slowly. I've actually just probably made the server hang by clicking there, so I'm going to hit escape. Let stuff continue. And we're just going to load in. I'm going to quickly run and smash a mech. I'm going to quickly run and test the physics volumes on the monument. And then we can call this a successful setup. We should also see if animations are working, because I suspect they will be now. Yep. So it was just... and you may notice when playing the game that you see... that was really bad. Can I recover this? No. That was awful. You may notice that you see there's a table vanity in the server files. Hello, Knight of Faith. Sage of Wanderlust. I respect that statement. Yep, so you may find going around DLU that there are certain that members of the community are scattered everywhere, and points to anyone who can find mine. I'm going to run this way because I might as well smash a mech on the way to the monument stuff. Just to demonstrate, because the turret's not spawning in. If that does happen to you, then that means you probably haven't saved your SQLite database or haven't correctly applied the changes. So you can see I have. You'll also notice this tends to be quite slow. Or occasionally doesn't even work. That's just to do with how it's implemented on the server. That's not actually a bug. The context in which it doesn't work is if you've already spawned... is if you're spawning within the volume it checks for people, you never cross the volume, and therefore it doesn't recognise you as having entered. Let's run through this quickly. You can see that works. Oh, this seems to work this time. That didn't turn off last time, so maybe this means the fans will be working. Let's avoid that button. Oh, okay. Fans are working for me. Anyway, so with that done, what remains me to say is huge thank you to all of the developers, and also a shout that I know lots and lots of people have been complaining at the developers for the fact that this is hard to understand and like calling them lazy, etc. This took me, someone with no experience, several hours to do. The devs have been working on this game unpaid for years. If you are thinking of calling the devs lazy, think about who's sunk more time into it. Like, seriously, the devs are definitely not being lazy, and there are actually some good reasons you might not notice or might not know about for the reason that they couldn't just release an executable. Lots of people seem to assume it's for legal reasons. That's not the primary reason. The primary reason they can't release an executable is because basically the files they use. It took LUCH quite a while to reach the stage where they were in a place where they could make a easy to run release version. It took them months. And given how much people were already complaining about DLU not releasing, I don't think anyone would have been too happy had they spent several more months on it. Also, they're not necessarily the best people in the world to make setup videos, because why are they doing this? It's because they're incredible developers, not necessarily because they're incredible at making tutorial videos. I mean, in fairness, I'm making a tutorial video and I'm awful at it, but you get my point. Bear in mind that the devs have spent a lot of time on this. If you're surprised they haven't done something, there almost certainly is a reason for it that you're not seeing. Maybe there isn't, but almost all the time there is. We've got Mick, the Brick Master Broker, Zeop. This is kind of cool to just see people around here. Got Blaster. Mood bars and randomized weather. LU does not have that. You're in the wrong game, mate. Yeah. Thank you all very much for watching. I've been LU, and I've now got to edit my name out of every single place in the command line where it appeared. See you around.